All right. Happy New Year. Everyone must be motivated. So we have to create your perfect diet, and I guess we got a small-ish kind of group where we can have some sort of dialogue, but what's kind of the most frustrating thing as far as anytime making a new diet change or creating a perfect diet that maybe I can address? I have an agenda of what I want to talk about, but if I can get more towards you guys and you guys get more value out of it, that's a whole lot better for everybody. So what are kind of the biggest frustrations with diet and nutrition?
Conflicting information.
Okay.
Yet there's some similarities.
So conflicting yet agreeable in the same breath. Okay. Like nobody agrees on cookies, like I've never seen the junk food diet proponent yet. Cool. So we'll go through it. Just some expectations. Like I always assume people are smart and intelligent. You guys are. Like think of the 500,000 people we have in the city that could be here tonight or could be viewing or those types of things. But you're here because you want to make a change. So I assume you're smart and intelligent to do that. I'm not a professional speaker, so don't count my ums and ahs and all those types of things. Full back money guarantee. How much did you guys pay to come? So there you go. More often people leave with more questions than answers. And I think that's the beauty of creating your own health, is because the better you can ask questions, the better answers you're going to come to. And if I can get you to ask better questions, then you can then ask your doctor those better questions. And what do you think is going to happen a lot of times when you start asking those better questions?
Depends on which doctor you're talking to.
They don't have good answers for them, do they? Exactly. And when we're talking about nutrition tonight, I want to cut the dogma. And so, how do you know if your nutrition is dogmatic or someone's nutrition is dogmatic? Have you ever met a vegan who would rather cause harm to humans in the name of saving animals?
Yes.
That's not a nutrition plan, that's a religion. Or have you ever met someone who's paleo, who could be 30 days with no food, you give them a bowl of cereal, Cheerios and milk, and they'd rather starve than have that nourishment? That's a religion, that's not nutrition. So we can create all sorts of nutrition habits with any sorts of dietary plans. So just always step back and is this actually nutrition or is this dogma? And when people start getting emotional about things, that's kind of when you should cut your Facebook comment thread and get out of Dodge. So this morning, perusing the news. This was in CNN this morning. We got a chair over here if someone wants to come in.
Two chairs there.
There's two extra chairs right there. He'll be right back.
Man, it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
So this is something you guys can look up. This was this morning, so January 8th, right up here, 2019. One cardiologist mission to reduce statin use for cholesterol. It's about time. 40 years too late, I think. But here's kind of some of the highlights. It took more than 80,000 hours of training for me to become a cardiologist. How much of that was spent on nutrition? What's the number one cause of death in our country? Heart disease. Treatment guidelines representing the standard of care only pay lip service to nutrition. For example, the American Heart Association's latest cholesterol management guideline is 120 pages long. How much of that is devoted to a diet? Paragraph.
Oh, they give you one.
They give you one. And guess what it probably says? Eat low fat, right? Yeah. Do you know that doctors are monitored according to whether they prescribe medications? And if I don't follow the cholesterol guidelines, the insurance letters start coming scolding me. So this is from this cardiologist.
Oh, that's good.
It's true.
Yeah. So guess who's really at the point of treatment between you and your doctor if it's an insurance model? Insurance company. So the doctor's working for the insurance company and will do what they will allow to try to fit you and treat you into this box. What's the problem with that?
I don't like blood. They're not doctors.
They're not, yeah, I guess that's a good point. They're not doctoring. They're just kind of going by this checklist of things that could be happening. And kind of another point that he talked about, physicians even get paid more when a drug is prescribed. In contrast, if a physician uses some of the very limited time with patients to talk about, say, antioxidants or omega-3 acids, they get nothing more. So there's no incentive to talk about nutrition. There's no incentive to get you well in an insurance-based model. This is why I don't go in an insurance-based model. Because then it's between me and you. You're the hero, I'm the guide, and it's, if I don't do a good job, you fire me. Like, it's pretty simple. Something else that just came out, America's Health Rankings. We were talking about this before we started. Hawaii got ranked #1 as the healthiest state in the union. Anyone that's been there always disagrees when, like, everyone I've mentioned that to. But anyway, if we go back to, so we're kind of starting in a political season for the next cycle of elections. And when healthcare comes up and why we suck at health, what are their reasons why Americans aren't as healthy? Like, what's the political answer?
Obesity.
They don't have access.
They don't exercise enough.
No, they never talk about lifestyle, do they? Have you ever heard any politician be like, we need to eat better, or we need to exercise more? No, they play the, we don't have access, and we're too poor for the healthcare system. And so in this report, it came out, so some of the success summary might be hard to see. So the percentage of children in poverty decreased. So we have less people in impoverished aspects to get better health care. In the past year, mental health providers increased 8%. Primary care physicians increased 5%. So guess what? We have more to take care of the population. Air pollution went down 12%, and we're getting more people shots. So, more access, more treatment. What's going to happen to our health outcomes, do you think?
Not much better.
Speaking to the choir. So the challenges. So in the past year, obesity still increased 5%. Drug deaths increased 25%. This is from 2015. If you look at just 2016, I think there was like around 60,000 deaths from drugs. 40,000 or so were from opioids. Guess where people get opioids from? Our healthcare system. 2016, the frequent of mental distress increased 7%, frequent and physical distress increased 5%, and cardiovascular deaths have significantly increased 2% since 2015. So the more access, the more treatment we give, our health outcomes always get worse and worse and worse. And so that's why we have to kind of come back to you, and kind of the whole reason of my professional career is to create more health, less healthcare. And so just add a .com after that, that's my website, and you'll see a bunch of stuff with it. Including, hopefully, if this works, the recording of this talk, and if you need to go back and review. So, this is me. Like, I hate the question, so what do you do? I'm like, well, I kind of do a bunch of things. Like, we're all a being and have different roles. So, some of my most important roles as a husband. We are 10.5 years into that journey. 3 boys, 7, 5, and 3. So we are very loud. Yeah, that's all I can say. Like, I enjoy coming to these things because I get peace and quiet. An author, I wrote a book back in 2016 called Steward Leadership. So basically, looking at you as a leader and using health as your unfair advantage to be better at leading, whatever you're executive or you're a stay-at-home mom, doesn't matter the role. Educator, I think that's kind of goes to the more health, less healthcare. A hope dealer. Why is hope important with health? What's that? It buys you time. What hope does is just give you that twinkle to keep going just a little bit more. And so when you start understanding these concepts that I talk about tonight, usually when people go to a doctor, like, hey, you have to do this forever, you suck for this forever, we can look at it from a different paradigm. You're like, oh, I have some hope, and that starts getting people moving into action. In functional medicine, that's what I practice. So I'm a chiropractor by degree, but realized there's more to the story, and then went back to school and got my functional medicine degree. And that's kind of a newer term to a lot of people, but becoming more popular, I guess. And what it means is I look at the body through a series of systems opposed to a collection of symptoms, where in our healthcare system, we have a bunch of different specialists. You have your heart guy and your brain guy and your kidney guy and whatever. If they would just step back and realize you can't affect one of those things without affecting it all, they would have a whole lot better outcomes, and they wouldn't say, not my job. Like, there'd be a whole lot better communication within our healthcare system and a way better outcomes. So, with this, I would say functional medicine, the biggest thing it's taught me is just to ask better questions. And so hopefully I can impart that onto you through here, through website, all that type of stuff. So question number 1, what is your perfect diet? Anybody figured it out yet?
Not really. We were here.
Right. Do you think your perfect diet is also your perfect diet?
No.
Is also your perfect? No. So that's the whole thing. There's variations. Now, the frustrations we said in the beginning was there's going to be commonalities, but there's also contradictions within those commonalities. And so hopefully we can start to decipher some of those. Now, what it's not. So things people say that don't help. A lot of people say the perfect diet is all things in moderation. Why is this the worst advice ever?
What is moderation?
Do you moderately beat your wife? Do you moderately smoke crack? Like, moderation is the worst advice ever if you want to make a change in life. Moderation is the quickest way to stay mediocre. So, worst advice, the one you'll stick to. How many of your kids would stick to a pizza diet every night? Exactly. Like, it's ridiculous advice. Based on research. What's wrong with research nowadays?
Not necessarily right.
Depends on who's funding it. What's the
Yeah, there's a big funding capability that wants to see that outcome in a positive light. The second thing is you can take the same exact data and come out with 2 totally different outcomes.
Well, look at it. Yeah, 'cause they did that with the eggs way back then. You can't eat them, now you can't
Yeah.
have this and that, yeah.
So this is what we do with, like, say, drug research. So flu shot, cholesterol drugs, whatever. They take, here's one group that gets the real thing. Here's the other group that gets the fake thing. So let's say this is what they did with Lipitor. In the real group, after 3 years, so I'd say 100 people in each group, 2 people got a heart attack in this group, versus the placebo who got nothing, 3 people had a heart attack. So what would you conclude out of 100 people, 3 versus 2?
You have 33% less chance of having a heart attack.
That's what they say. So they say it's third. They can even manipulate it more. Well, they'll say 3 minus 2 is 1, and since 1 is half of 2, now it's a 50% reduction in that. Or we would say 3 minus 2 is 1, 1 out of 100 is a 1%, statistically negligible. So you can have astronomically different things. The other thing too, especially with nutrition, is they look at population studies a lot. So they look at this nation, so say Americans, and lately it's been blaming red meat, where they're like, you guys consume a ton of it, and your heart disease rates are astronomical. And we're going to pinpoint everything you eat to this one item on your food plate, which is a steak. What do most people eat their steaks with?
Potatoes.
Potatoes, and they have probably a soda on the side. Like, so they don't factor in all those other things, and they just hone in on one variable that life's not one variable ever. And then number 4, variety's the spice of life. Why is this bad advice? Has anyone ever tried to make a meal out of spices? I inadvertently did when we were first married. I didn't read the recipe well, and so I'm trying to make this crock pot chicken dish, and it was all these like thyme and like all these like strong herbs that should have been very little, but somehow I thought tablespoons of these things. And so it was more like this spice encrusted chicken where you're just crunching on. So I tried it, it doesn't work. Now, what it is. So things people ignore that are vital, based on biochemistry. This is where you're all going to have individual needs based on your lifestyle and based on your timing in life. So does a 40-year-old man, me, eat the same thing as a 4-hour-old infant?
No.
Could either of us survive switching diets like that?
No.
No. Genetically, we're almost virtually identical, but what biochemistry is when your genes, your DNA, which is this constant blueprint, interact interacts with your external circumstances. And so that's where you have to come into play, and that's where testing is huge. Other things, got to support your purpose or your goals or your passion or your mission. So, my goal is to do, say, 100 push-ups where someone else can care less about it. We're going to have totally two different nutrition plans for that. And I think nutrition, like we talk about being dogmatic, supporting your purpose is ultimately what it comes down to, because health isn't a static achievement that you create. It's a tool that then is used to go serve other people in a more effective manner. It's got to be measurable and objective, and I see this all the time. On the intake paperwork, people write, like, so it'll be dietary questions. Do you follow a dietary pattern? And some will say low carb, and the next questions are, okay, list out what you eat. And it'll be like cereal and a sandwich. And I'm like, well, that's not really low carb. And I'll ask them, how many carbs are you eating? Like, well, I don't know. Well, then you can't say you're low carb if you can't measure it. Or let's say someone's coming in on keto. What's your percentage of fat? No idea. Then you're not doing keto. Like, so there's got to be some sort of objective measurement of what you're doing to quantify if it's effective or not. If it's not written down, it doesn't happen. And then the other thing is, nutrition doesn't care how you feel. Like, people say they have bad relationships with food. In order to have a relationship with someone, there's got to be both parts to it. Food doesn't care how you feel, so when someone says they have a bad relationship with food, it means they have a bad relationship with themselves. And if they treated themselves or treated others the way they treat themselves, they would have been punched in the face pretty much every day. So a lot of self-esteem and a lot of mental, emotional stuff has to go in to a person to actually enhance their nutrition quality with it. So how do we figure it out? Here's a pyramid. There's 15 bubbles, but 14 different variables. So, kind of what started me on this journey was, do you guys remember this thing? A petri dish. And why is this important when it comes to nutrition?
Because it's the truth in your test.
It's a truth teller. So, if you want to put some cells in this dish, you have to create an environment for it. And what goes into that gel in that environment? Nutrients, right?
Nutrients.
And then you have to have the right temperature around it. And you have to have the right cleanliness. And you have to have all these other factors. And so this is no different than you. That one cell in this petri dish is no different than you on a global scale. And instead of a little dish, you have factors of how you eat, how you move, how you think, job pressures, environmental, all these types of things. And so those are all these variables that are coming into you in this world we call a petri dish. And what happens if we're not being provided what we need, that's called deficiency. And if we're getting what we don't require, then we call that a toxicity. And when we have that, we start to adapt. And so let's kind of take this on a journey where we've got our brain sitting at the hierarchy of kind of all our functions. And if someone said you had to say one word, what does the brain do, what would you tell them?
Controls the body.
That's 3 words.
Think.
Think. Remember.
Reason.
Monitor. So monitor's kind of, I like the word organize. So just organizing life. And there's essentially 2 closets we organize into. So if we go this way, it's to help protect us. If you go this way, it's to grow and repair. What's the problem with those 2 closets? You can't be in both at the same time. So where health should reside is just this ability to straddle, so react and recover. Where issues start to arise, so if we're always being deficient in something, or we're toxic in something, or you put those together and it has a compounding effect, guess which side we go towards more often than not? Yeah, we go into protective mode. So you can also call deficiency and toxicity, you can call that stress. And it's not just a nutrition basis, it can be a social structure. You don't have enough friends, or you have too many arguments on Facebook threads. Like, there's those types of things. It could be a physical thing. You sit at a cubicle for 12 hours a day staring at a blue screen. So there's many factors, and that's kind of what the bottom rung is. But the point is, that's what stress is. So expand stress into not just mental, emotional, but kind of every potential hit. And it's usually not one big thing that shoots you over in this protective mode. It's a bunch of little things that start to compound upon each other and build and kind of adds layers like an onion. Now, let's say this is a real danger, like you're out hiking and a bear pops out. You get shot this way. What's the first part of the body your brain's going to talk to you?
Legs.
Muscles.
Your legs.
Legs. Before those, before your muscles,
Heart.
before your legs, before your heart.
Adrenaline going,
Which is produced by what?
Adrenal gland.
There you go, adrenals. See, you guys are smart. So you said adrenaline. I'm going to lump that in a bigger group called catecholamines, so you could think epinephrine and norepinephrine and dopamine and those things. So you got that adrenaline rush. What's it going to do to heart rate? Is that smart or stupid?
Smart.
What's it going to do to blood pressure?
Increase.
What about your muscles?
Yeah.
Ready for action.
Are they going to be nice? They're going to be able to stretch and touch your toes? Or... No, you're going to contract them. What about your chance of blood clotting?
Oh, I don't know if it going.
Chance of injury or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to bleed out or not?
No.
What about your blood vessels? They're muscles as well.
Dilate.
They're going to constrict, they're going to increase that pressure to get that blood shooting through. And what about everybody cholesterol that we talked about in the beginning? Yeah. If these things don't happen with a danger, what's your chance of surviving?
Not good.
Not good. So this is what symptoms do. They buy you time to escape the danger to be able to re-regulate. So the body never does stupid stuff. So if there's anything you take away tonight, just remember that. Never does stupid stuff. What we do that's stupid is we look at these things and then we call them stupid. And so we go into that cardiologist that was talking about in the beginning, and what does he do to your blood pressure? What's he do? Your muscles are chronically tight and pain and muscle relaxers. What about your cholesterol through the roof?
Statins.
Your blood's starting to clot.
Blood thinners.
Aspirin a day, right? Now, what just happened to your chance of surviving that bear attack? Yeah, you feel great as he chews you up, but you're not going to survive that bear. So, these guys also trigger a part of the brain that's our alert and anxiety center. If you're anxious, what happens to learning, memory, and concentration?
Focus.
Right, which is going to be on this side. So it's called the hippocampus. Not important, just think campus where you learn. Adrenals also do something else. Another hormone does it release. Cortisol, yes. See, you guys are smart. Better question, what does cortisol do?
Too stressed.
But that's not what it does.
Makes you fat.
Not directly. So if we backtrack, if it makes you fat, usually what's in a component of gaining weight?
It causes insulin resistance.
Keep going. So insulin resistance is caused by too much of what? Sugar.
So cortisol increases.
So cortisol increases your blood sugar. So I could have someone with a totally clean diet still be in a diabetic situation because they hate their life, they hate their job, they're abusive, like all those types of things. So there's more to the story than just the nutrition coming in. High blood sugar, smart or stupid?
It's smart for the body, but
It
it's
depends.
a bad place to be.
If you tell someone who's totally adrenal fatigued, if they wish they could pump out some blood sugar. Yeah. So a bear's chasing you, you need instant energy. You don't have the Snickers bar. You can't get that up, you don't have the energy to run away. So it's always smart. Now, you brought up another point, insulin resistant. If this is too high, we have checks and balances. And you mentioned insulin, which is going to be on this growth side. Now we're in this internal argument. Do I want high blood sugar or do I want to store it for potentially the next bear attack where I have to run away? Which one's going to win out?
Storage.
No, we're going to always err on the side of caution and utilize it now. So, our cells are like, you know what, I don't want to listen to insulin, I'm going to become resistant to you. And they put the fingers in the ear. So now we have high blood sugar, insulin resistance, your blood pressure's high, your blood's clotting, heart rate's up.
You're not helping.
Right. And you start entering the American healthcare system, and they have two options for you. What are they?
Drugs.
Or
Surgery.
surgery. Yep. You don't have enough chemicals, so you're deficient in chemicals, and you have too many body parts. You have toxic in body parts, so they start removing stuff. Now, I'll keep expanding this, but keep it in the context of there's 3 body systems that start to get disrupted, and this adds more variables to it. So this first one we've been talking about, we'll call this the neuroendocrine. So neuro, your brain's communication to endocrine, so organs that release hormones. So you have your adrenals, you have your pancreas. What do you think is going to happen to sex hormones in this state?
We're gonna plummet.
Yeah. Is that smart or stupid?
Stupid. Well, it's very
smart.
yeah.
It's smart.
So we'll add, again, you guys are smart. All sex hormones have a building block called DHEA, which is actually built from cholesterol. So the more we attack cholesterol, guess what happens to our sex hormones? I don't have a study, it's just biochemistry. This goes way over here and supports estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Are you worried about making babies if you're running from a bear?
No.
Nope. You think you have much sex drive if you're jumping into a lake? No. So intelligently, it conserves that energy to keep you over here because the body's going to use this to support something else. And here's where we get to the next one, the gut and GI system. So let's say you run away from the bear, you jump into this swamp, and there's dirty diapers, and there's toxic materials. What's your chance of inhaling or ingesting that? Pretty good. You can't hold your breath forever, right? So, in that stress time point, DHEA and cortisol say, you know what? What I'm going to do is make sure if you inhale or ingest something, it gets into this tube internally, we're going to lock it up and keep it quarantined until you get to safety, then we're going to get rid of it. You might throw up, you might have diarrhea, you might have whatever it is. And so stress actually enhances that gut barrier. Now, if you're constantly running, what's going to happen to your capability of creating a strong barrier, do you think? Yeah, you're going to get fatigued out. If you're always running, you're going to get tired. You're not going to be able to keep up with the demand. And so what should stay nice and quarantined in that gut? Now we have this compromised barrier. Your doctor may not believe in leaky gut, but if you use the term intestinal permeability, they'll be like, oh yeah, same thing. You just got to speak their language. what stays in the gut leaks out, and now we have antibodies taking over and producing that histamine reaction, which can be pain, it can be runny nose, it can be congestion, it can be mucus building, whole 9 yards. This doesn't work by itself. This starts hitting on that third system, the liver detox. Liver comes down and says, I'm going to produce your cousin called inflammation. So, inflammation doesn't occur unless there's tissues that are being damaged. If we're in this state, we're in a state of tissue damage. It's called catabolic activity. So you're burning through resources quicker than you can replenish them and resupply them. What else does your gut do? If it's the immune system here, what's the other function? Digestion. So what do you think happens to digestion if your gut's more focused on immune? Yeah. So then you have GERD and reflux and gallbladder issues, like that whole system. And then last but not least, if the liver's busy fighting fighters,
It's not doing the detox.
it's not going to detox. And so this isn't just outside chemicals. Guess what needs to be detoxed most of all? Yeah, it kind of cycles right back to that neuroendocrine system where these signals, which started you in fight or flight, aren't being cleared by the body and now keeping you in fight or flight. So you get cut off in traffic, which 2 minutes later you should be nice and calmed down, but 2 hours later you're still fuming because these things happen. And so it creates this kind of system sequence of disruption from brain hormone type of connection, gut GI, so immune digestion, and then liver detox. And once this starts in this cycle, regardless of any external thing, that can perpetuate it. Like I'll see people with childhood trauma, abuse, sexual abuse, whatever it is, this starts in their life, and then when they're 30, 40, 50, autoimmune is now being surfaced because this has been constantly just turning over and over and over, and then you add just life stresses and nutrition, like all those other things that come into it. And so when this happens, there's 4 big variables. So oxidation, so think of that as like emissions being spit out. If we're on this side of life, we're going quicker than we need to, cells break apart, things start going out in the system. Inflammation, if we have damage, we have repair, catabolic activity, and then insulin resistance. So those are 4 big things when you're trying to create your perfect diet you have to put into account, because those are going to be what can be measurable. So other than just how you feel, these are things that build up oftentimes silently that usually don't surface until sometimes decades later. So the more you can control those, the more you can quantify them, the better your diet's going to be. And then it comes down to the kind of 5 variables. Nutrition is one of them. But again, this can't hold up the whole base of this pyramid. I've had people like, my diet is pristine. There's nothing I could change about it. Like I eat, I'm like, great. How's your relationships? But my diet's great. Can you do a push-up? But my diet's great. Like they just kept going back to that. And so it was becoming a dogmatic situation without addressing other things. So nutrition is part of it, but you have to be congruent with, great, you have a great diet, but are you a 2-pack a day smoker? Like there's going to be ebbs and flows there. Great, you may have a great diet, but if you can't do a push-up to save your kid's life, then you're missing out on it. There's the mental, emotional, social aspect of it, and then medicine. Like this, the medical part of it, what medicine is designed to do is block nutrients. So it blocks those biochemical steps. So the more meds someone is on, the actually harder their case is going to be and slower to get the results that they're looking for. And so how do we test and track our needs? So we go back to these 4 things. So this is kind of where you are expressed biochemically. So we have these 4 things that's happening with this whole thing of catabolic activity. Are you in a state of tissue breakdown? Are you insulin resistant? Do you have inflammation going on? And is there a lot of oxidation? Now, a quick visual test that can quantify this is look at this. If this makes you dizzy, if it makes you nauseous, then, more specifically, you probably have some brain inflammation, especially cerebellum. And that could be like, this is just an example, it could be from past concussions, it could be gluten intolerance, it could be thyroid problems, there's a bunch of things that it could be. No one's looking at this anymore. Yeah, everyone's throwing up. All right, don't put the slide in again. But anyway, that's something, by looking at that, if that's causing disruptions within the body, like that's a good sign, okay, we need some further testing in that. Now, things you could ask your doctor for, so some common, maybe not so common, A1C. Does anyone know what that is?
Glucose marker.
Yes, so kind of a blood sugar average over 90 to 120 days type of thing. The other thing you can use it for is a damage marker. The higher this is, the more that is going to be a damaging molecule in your body. So it can be an insulin resistance marker, but it could also be an inflammatory oxidative marker. So that's one that you can track quite a bit. Fasting insulin. If we're like, your blood sugars could be okay, A1C decent, but I've seen fasting insulin then off the charts. So it just adds another piece to that puzzle of the insulin resistance equation. Triglycerides, so if any of the cardiac markers like cholesterol and LDL, HDL, I put a lot more weight in triglycerides because it's a fat attached to sugars. What happens is, here's kind of where that research thing, here's this molecule, someone can blame it's too much of a fat problem, someone can blame it's too much of a sugar carb problem. And the more they've attacked fat, the more triglycerides have gone up. So that's another thing. IGF-1, anyone know what that is? That's insulin-like growth factor. So your brain talks to these hormones, or these organs to these hormones. On this side, your brain would talk to the liver through growth hormone, you've heard of that, to produce this IGF-1. So it's kind of an indirect measurement of growth hormone. Too high, and that's another kind of sign your body's like spitting through cells a whole lot quicker. The higher it is, chances of cancer go way up. Homocysteine, another inflammatory marker. And then CRP is another inflammatory marker. So if you took that list to your doctor, I would say you'd probably be able to get four of the 6 no problem. You'd probably have to lobby a couple for the other ones. If you want to get even deeper, this is what I use often. It's a test called organic acids. So this is a urine test looking at emissions, essentially. What are you wasting in all these chemical reactions in your body just by testing through your urine? So you're looking at kind of functional vitamin and mineral status. So this is where you might get a blood test for B12. Hey, this looks great, but this test actually shows are you utilizing it? So amino acid insufficiencies, damage markers, detox markers, B-complex, neurotransmitters, mitochondria. Like, I love this test. Like, a lot of you familiar faces know, like, this is kind of my go-to here. And even the markers for bacterial and yeast overgrowth, because that can disrupt a lot of these processes as well. Even deeper, especially if autoimmune, that's where your poop. Poop gives you a whole lot of insight into how this is processing, but also digestive markers, and you can support it that way. So there's more you can do to test these things, and that's what you can start creating your more personalized plan with that. Now, how do you implement? So you got the problem, now it's the solution, right? So this is what I would say was starting points. It's usually not the what to do that holds people back, it's keeping doing it that holds people back. And that's why I always say find your why and start with that. So kind of what's your purpose behind changing your nutrition? And there's usually two modes to create a purpose. You're trying to gain something you want but don't have, or you're trying to lose something you have but don't want. Which one usually is longer term planning? Yeah, when you're trying to gain something you want but don't have. So one of my goals is at 80, I want to be in the gym, and they're arguing, I think he's only like 58, 60, like, so I want to gain that. Like, I'm not there yet. I got another 40 years to go. If your why is, I just want to lose something, you can get into a lot of dangerous procedures doing that way. So I just want to lose weight. Great, chop off a leg. There's a good 30 pounds right there. Like, right, I say it tongue in cheek, but it could be. Next thing to do is baseline biometrics. This could be the testing I talked about, but this could just be measurements, functionality. So how many squats can you do before you fatigue out? How many push-ups could you do before you fatigue out? How long could you stare at that picture before getting discombobulated? And if you can stare at it 10 seconds longer, great, you're heading in the right direction. With psychology, always add first. So I have the 3 boys. What happens when we start taking toys away? Yeah. Guess what? We're just bigger toddlers with bigger hissy fits. So when you start removing and taking things away from us, we throw bigger fits. So instead of always taking away, add something first. Like New Year's time, what do people do?
New Year's resolution.
Right. And they're going to try to add something that they hate to begin with, and that doesn't work either. So I'm going to get up at 5, go to the gym, and run on the treadmill. But you hate 5 a.m., you hate the gym, and you hate the treadmill. Like, that's not going to last. So you have to, that's refining your why. You have to be congruent between what your values are with this. So creating that. Focus on macros. You guys know what that means. So macros are your carbs, your fats, and your proteins. This is where marketing comes into play because the next sexy thing is happening, whether it's CBD, and now like the next new trend is going to be mushroom, and all like you can't survive on CBD oil, you can't survive just eating mushrooms. So start by focusing on the bigger picture. Like everyone had the science teacher where here's the jug, and he puts the 3 big rocks in it, and it fills it to the top. And you're like, is it full? And everyone's like, yes. He's like, well, no, you're wrong. Like, here's the pebbles, and it starts filling in the gaps. Now, here's the sand, and here's the water. We start focusing on the little water molecules and sand pebbles and thinking that's going to solve our issues, when a lot of times we start focusing on those macros to fill up 90% of the jug. You're going to have a ton of success with that. And then record what you eat. If it's not written down, you didn't do it. Like, so when you say, hey, I'm low carb, and I say how many carbs, and you're like, I don't know, like, it's relative. Someone could be, like, I think the average carb intake for Americans is 300 grams. So someone could be at 275 and to be technically lower carb. Like, or like, yeah. You could be keto and not eat anything ever. Like, you're just in ketosis because you're in starvation. Like, you gotta write stuff down. If you get stuck, this is where we go to the 3-system sequence. So what is going on with you biochemically, neuroendocrine, that's affecting gut GI, that's now affecting liver detox. This time of year, most people kind of go at it backwards. We're going to start with a detox. How well does that go for a lot of people? It doesn't, because the gut's not supported, so what you're trying to cleanse out has nowhere to go except just to be recycled. Or a lot of people are like, I'm going to heal my gut. Great, but if you don't have the signals to create a strong barrier, you might get good results initially, but then keep hitting a roadblock with that. And so always come back to the sequence of what's the brain trying to organize, let me reorganize that essentially, and then work on the other things through the system. And so sometimes it can be quick results, sometimes it can be longer. So this is Eric. A couple months ago he wrote this up. So in 4 months I've lost 45 pounds, went from 46 waist to 38. discontinued his cholesterol med, gout medication. He's on those for 20 years. Almost off his blood pressure med, and he probably is since writing this. And I asked him, like, what weren't you ready to hear when you started? And he was military guy, and for you that are in military and you go into military healthcare, what's the interchange there? What's the communication? You do this and don't question it, right? So he was in that mindset of doctor knows best, they're the hero in this equation, I'm just along for the ride, until he finally started questioning and doing those things. This is a guy that's changed diets. He was on a vegan diet for like a year, and when you start prodding, he's like, I was actually probably on a vegan junk food diet. So if it was like, said vegan on the packaging, regardless of what was in it, he's like, we ate it. So I could have eaten chips 3 times a day, but it said vegan, and he was doing that type of stuff. So we changed up some of those macros. But his thing was like, he finally realized he's the hero, he's the one in charge in this game of healthcare. Sarah's different story. Heading down the path to rheumatoid arthritis. Mom, I met her a couple times, pretty crippled with rheumatoid arthritis, so a lot of fear that she's following that same suit. Had the rheumatoid factors and CRP, which I mentioned in one of those tests. Hers was 5.7. I like it under 0.5. Like under 1 is really good, but like anything over that, and that's a, you got, what do you call it, fires going on inside. And so for her, it was a 3-year battle to finally like rheumatoid factor reversed, so non-existent, and then her CRP came down to 0.4. But it was a lot of hard work, it was a lot of dedication, a lot of consistency. They also have 3 small kids, so I mean, different life stages, different circumstances while they're coming in can have great results short term, or sometimes it's going to take quite a bit longer. So that's just the reality of those things. Now how we get there is we do a team approach. Sometimes we can do some testing, great, here's a self-directed study, but we're expanding things because we're realizing so many other aspects in life are affecting you. And so I have one guy, David, the bald guy. We call him the professor of potential. He's now putting a lot of my clients through a thing called Strengths Finders. And that's to find your top 5 strengths, because the more you can work in congruent with those strengths, the less stress you're going to have. It helps to set the stage back over there. Like the baby, they're going to be over here. They don't have a way to protect themselves. That's mom and dad's job. So the more we can shift from this catabolic tissue breakdown to anabolic, there it is. Jamie, the little one. She's our field guide now. So she does a lot of like meeting you in your world, whether it be in the grocery store or in your kitchen or those types of things, just to make the implementation a whole lot more. Callie, she's our queen of concierge. I think most people come to see her more than me. And then I'm just kind of the clinic guy who sticks his head in the sand and looks through labs all day. And so that's kind of a snapshot of what we do. Other things you can do, 30 ways for 30 days. So if you're not on this or haven't heard of it, it's just a daily email for 30 days that I send out that gives you kind of our top 30 tips and practices and procedures that we do personally as a family, recommendations. All you need is an email and name, so if you want to sign up for that, you can pass it through. Book. I'm giving these away. I don't have them here tonight. Kind of a catch. So if you want one, just stop through the office and be like, I was at Dr. Kurt's talk. He said, let's get a book. Go in and grab one. And then if you have questions, we do a discovery call. So pick my brain for 15, 20 minutes on the phone, see if we're a good fit for something, where we go, next steps, and then devise a plan for you. Questions?